Love, that ever-flowing liquid fire of light, ever-expanding and illuminating truth, which is always revealed with wisdom, a spiritual nutrient necessary for vitality that is maintained through selflessness, a filter of ether that aids purity, which is love. Love, a limitless paper lantern floating into infinity on the intentions and actions of initiates of the mysteries. All right, welcome everybody. We have Sam Warren and her cat.
Yeah, it's Scarlett.
Sam Warren and Scarlett are joining us today. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Ross?
I'm doing great, thank you. How's Scarlett doing?
I think she's doing pretty good. She's just looking for some pets now. She's a little bit of a high maintenance cat that way.
Would you say she's perfect? Sorry, that was so bad.
But I'm cha.
Oh.
All right. Well, you got the dad jokes going on right to this morning, so.
Yeah, I actually made a horribly bad joke where it was like, I wonder if I have like a kid that I don't know about because of my sense of humor. But then when I like made that as a joke, I'm like, no, that's a pretty dark joke. I don't think I could have it. I think I'm just corny.
There's so many people out there like that, just so you know, that they're like, I don't have kids, but I can make the best dad jokes ever.
That's good to know. I think there only needs to be one set of my genes floating around there. I think it's a service to the world. I mean it in the best way possible.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with a daily Tao reading. It's day 222 when we're recording this. This will be posted later.
Is it really 222?
Yeah, and that's my birthday as well, so I really like this reading.
That's amazing.
Yeah, good old February 22nd. Bradley Noel and George Washington share a birthday with me.
Well, we got some pretty famous people there. I've got Kate Moss.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. She's a model?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reading for today is B. Tao is within us. Tao surrounds us. Part of it may be sensed, and it is called manifestation. Part of it is unseen, and is called void. To be with Tao is harmony. To separate from Tao is disaster. To act with Tao, observe and follow. To know Tao, be still and look within. Tao is within us. We are Tao. It is also outside of us. It is all the known universe. All that we know of ourselves and our universe cannot account for all that is Tao. What we know is merely the outer manifestation of Tao. The ultimate Tao is called absolute. We cannot know it directly because it has no definitions, references, or names. Our normal minds are incapable of perceiving where there is no contrast. Yet it is precisely this colorless infinity that is the underlying reality to this life. The only way to fathom it is to remove our sense of division from it. In essence, we must plunge into the mystery itself. Only then will we know peace.
That was beautiful.
This book is fantastic.
That is beautiful.
So what does that bubble up for you? Like, what bubbles to mind after you hear that?
It reminds me of, oh, no, sorry, she's trying to bite me. What reminds me of it is like that, reminding Tao is energy. Energy is within us. Energy is outside of us. Energy, energy is within, everything that's around us, and that we're all, it's, like as above, so below, like we're all the same regardless of what's happening. And we're all just the vibration of our frequency is just, it's everything. It's within us. It's without us. It's just dependent on whether or not we can accept it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely relate with that. What I get from it is kind of like sometimes our own thoughts and overthinking of situations prevent us from being in that flow and being present in Tao. So we kind of exclude ourselves from it because we'll be like, well, I really want to do this. And it's something that I would enjoy, but I can't do this because of this. And then it fractals off into these
Yeah.
thousands of branches. And we have all these barriers as to why we can't be where we want to be.
Mm.
And I think that those kind of thoughts and like, those kind of thoughts are kind of what detracts us from living a healthy life and kind of leads to negativity, because the more we obsess over those thoughts instead of doing what is true in our hearts, the further disconnected we are from that source and that energy like you were talking about.
Yeah, which is so, it's so brilliant because we're coming up to, I just love how this is all just like connecting. So we're coming up to late summer, according to traditional Chinese medicine, which is like what Taoist is kind of like based off of as well. And late summer is like end of August-ish, like middle of August to like fall time, so end of September. Um, and the element that's associated with late summer is the earth. And what is the whole idea around late summer is because we've just come out of summer, which is fire energy, which is just like exuberance and excitement and celebration. And we're coming into fall, which is a lot of this harvesting time going into the winter, which is more reflective. And the late summer offers us this period of time for us to kind of regroup ourselves into regroup ourselves, connect ourselves back to what really matters, and to come into that place of like connectedness and a little bit more mindfulness. And what ends up happening, because summer is such a fire time where there's just so much going on, like, you know, there's a lot of yang energy going on, a lot of masculine go kind of energy, that coming from that going into the fall, there tends to be this a lot of mental thinking that happens around this time of the year, or at least in this late summer period, wherever you might be in the world, that a lot of it is mental thinking. So I'm doing a program, an event in September based off of the late summer. I do it with yoga and with the traditional Chinese medicine, like elements and, you know, the organs, etc., that we support ourselves through. And I was doing the work on it yesterday, and I was like, man, a lot of this has to do with like mental thinking, like connecting finding ourselves connected back to Mother Earth, connecting back to, you know, the soil, connecting back to the trees and to the air, and just connecting back to like what really matters for us to move into the next phase of the year until springtime, essentially. And because I always like to offer like some tips of what you can do. And a lot of it was like meditating and grounding meditations, or doing forest bathing and nature walks, and walking barefoot if it's possible, or finding coping mechanisms for overthinking and worry and anxiety and all these things. And I was like, wow, like that's a pretty telling time to go from like, I mean, it's a really beautiful transition into fall, I find, but yeah, it was just very interesting that that's what you got from it. And it's like day 222 is very pertinent to where we are, so to speak, in the yeah.
I like that connected to that, because another thing that's interesting, then I'll get into your tarot cards, is that's really right where I'm at. Is like I've been riding this lightning of energy through the summer, like produce, drive, and it's like this whole week has been like that fire energy, but it's also kind of been harvesting some things up so I can move into September with some resources to kind of not stop working, but kind of get ready to ease into things a little bit more. So it's really fascinating to me that that's where, like,
and I mean, and the time to also do a lot more harvesting would be like October, which would be like the harvesting, like think of it as like the little seed that you want to plant, so that when the spring comes, that's when it's going to come into bloom. So that's a good time too. Like October would be a good time to be like kind of like visioning and planning kind of like what you want to do for the springtime. So when it comes, you don't have to like rush around and allow that to happen. So, but that's great. Yeah.
That's kind of something I'll be doing in my business too, because I've decided to like set back the physical element of my business and just kind of focus on the online element of things, and then
That's cool. Yeah.
start doing shows in the spring time. So that's interesting how that kind of syncs up.
I know, it's wonderful how I just love how nature intuitively and subconsciously kind of dictates how we not even should operate in our lives, but how we just naturally do it when we kind of just like sit and listen, and we don't force ourselves to, you know, go with whatever flow it is. Like, so many people resist winter, and it's like, are you kidding me? Winter's one of the best seasons ever, because you got like this really introspective time on one hand. Yeah, sure, it is cold, and you know, here in Toronto we have snow and unpredictable weather, and you know, we do Celsius here, so I don't know what -40 with wind chill would be in Fahrenheit, but it is very cold. You know, so people resist it. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is an amazing time, because when the summer comes, like, this is what's going to help build up your energies for when the summer comes, and then you need to replenish your energy. And
I'm looking forward to the winter in lots of ways, just for that kind of like solitude, the reflectiveness, the quiet of it, really.
yeah, it's really it's one of my favorite times of the year. And yeah, actually fall is my favorite time, but I love winter too for that too.
I'm one of those people that like every season I like the next one, but then the season that's coming up, I'm always like, I'm so excited for it. Like I really like all of
you gotta just be.
Yeah.
Today's Tao of the day for you. Just be.
I always get hung up on the next thing, which is something I'm working on.
Well, it's society. We've been conditioned to do that. So yeah.
Okay, let's get your first card out of the way. This will be your anchor card. Ooh, I like it.
Oh, the Chariot.
Yep.
Oh, that's a good one.
What stands out to you the most on that?
It's the knight in the Chariot. Yeah, the knight, or the man, whatever you want to call him, just in the chariot. He's just kind of standing tall. Because I love this card, especially since I was like, I'm going back to school in a month. And the Chariot, I know, like, represents like that kind of like standing still in that moment of knowing that the wheels are going to start turning very, very soon, but knowing that you've kind of got like everything that you need to move forward with it. At least that's what it represents to me. And so I love how strong this particular person is standing in the chariot, and he's just kind of waiting for just waiting for these wheels to start turning, right? You know, he's got his what are they called? What are they? The lions?
Sphinxes.
The sphinxes.
Yep.
You know, there's kind of like, it's kind of like they're the guards too, kind of just like, you know, like, everyone, you know, move out of the way. We've got this beautiful chariot coming through. So it's kind of like they're making the pathway for him to come through.
I always like this card because to me it represents a lot of unification of duality as well. Like, I agree with everything that you said.
Yeah.
I think the way you described it is beautiful, but it is the unification of duality, because you have those two there, and then it comes to the point of the person within the chariot.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to use both of those forces, find the light and the dark, and the dark and the light, to really have that energy to move forward.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You can't have one and completely ignore the other.
Yeah, because then one wheel's going to be stuck. Like, you're going to be spinning in circles.
Yeah. Like a car in a ditch.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that's interesting that I just noticed this time too, like on that unification of duality level, that's kind of like where the kingdom opens up, or like all like the glory really is within the unification.
Yeah. Yeah, I just noticed that too. Like, as soon as you said it, one thing I noticed, I was like, oh, there's little kingdoms on each side. There's little houses. Yeah. No, that's awesome.
The other cool thing too, looking at it, is the grass around the sphinxes is kind of like the growth, and you grow from both of those experiences, like finding the light in the darkness and finding the darkness in the light. Like, it's all growth.
Yeah, so true. So
That's a
true.
cool one. That's a good anchor card, I feel like.
Yeah. Woo. All right. Let's hope all the other cards are like this.
I'm going to give you the standard definition real quick, even though I think
Yeah.
we covered it. I'll send you
Sure.
these cards too after so you can have like a fuller thing. I know you get it, but
Yeah.
succor, providence, also war, triumph, presumption, vengeance, trouble. I don't really like this book. I don't know why I still use it.
Let's find another book that we like.
Yeah, I have like my main book. That's just a little book that came with the deck. But meh. That's
Yeah.
what I say
Let's
about
go with what we want. Let's go with what we say.
it. Okay, so this is like your past card, which is obviously relative to your past, but not limited to.
Is that 6 of Cups?
Yep.
Okay.
So what stands out to you the most on that?
It looks like it looks like it's an abundance.
Mm-hmm.
That there's like an exchange of, I mean, if we can put it in the really big woo-woo terms, you know, like the cups are like an energy, so to speak, and it looks like there's an exchange of energy between these two people here, which could mean an exchange of monetary, it could be an exchange of goods, it can be an exchange of whatever it is that is in the abundance. Not there, but it just looks like there's like this really nice reciprocal exchange of some sort of energy in abundance.
I like that. I like that. The one book that I use a lot that I've learned a lot from says that cups are relative to water and like emotion. So it could be like emotional abundance, and also like that exchange of that like abundance is, if you look, there's those little flowers there like growing. So if you kind of view, even though it's not a lotus, think of it as the lotus, like from that emotional abundance of all forms of emotion. That's really what causes the growth and the unfolding of the lotus and connection. And it's like even unhealthy relationships, good relationships, it's all really growth in lots of ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm really curious what this card represents for the past in relation to everything else that's going to come up, because I mean, like I've had, you know, a friend of mine once said, she's like, you should write a book about all of your experiences with relationships or with the men that you've met in your past, because I've grown from each and every one of them, but it's kind of curious to see what that would be like, because it could also mean friendship too, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely, any kind of relationship, not just romantic.
No, so I'm kind of curious about what that would mean for the rest of the cards too.
Yeah, let's
tie together.
go for the present card. Oh, this is the second time this one's come up for somebody this week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite cards.
Oh,
it's also like the card that I drew is like the quintessence for the year.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great card to pull for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the sun. To be honest with you, what I noticed first is like it looks like a baby riding naked bareback on a horse, and he's just kind of like, hello. You know, kind of excited about like where this is. It a horse or no, it's a horse, not a unicorn.
It's a horse. Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
It kind of looked like a unicorn with one of the ears sticking out there. It just kind of it reminds me of just being like, hello, we're excited to be moving towards the possibilities and towards the light in the, not necessarily in like, you know, spirit light, but just like moving towards the light of like, this is where the path that you're supposed to be going on, and with the sunflowers behind it kind of just going like, yep, this is the way you're meant to be moving forward with it. So that's what I get.
Yeah, I like that. Some like when somebody else got the card too, the little naked baby stood out to them too, and I didn't really address it, but after the fact, I kind of thought of like what it could mean. It's kind of like connecting with that, like the eyes of the child concept, or like connecting with your inner child in lots of ways.
Yeah, no, I can see that for sure. It's kind of like because I've been doing a lot of work with my inner child too, and or you know, connecting back to like what you know, what my inner child really wants and what it used to love, and kind of going back to like what it used to love, because that's where I was the least inhibited of my entire life. and kind of working through that way. And yeah, it's a really interesting process when you do that.
Yeah, I've actually, somebody else suggested that like one of my exes, her therapist told her to connect to things that she loved when she was a kid. And when I got into exercising last year, it's like I always loved to swim as a kid. So it's like I also heard make exercise fun. So I got into swimming, and it's like I've gotten out of the habit, but I'm trying to work back into it now. Or I should say I'm working back into it. There is
Yeah.
no try, only do. But it's like that is a really cool process to connect with what you liked when you were younger, because
Yeah.
you liked it for a reason, and for
Yeah.
whatever reason you blocked it down, usually because somebody told you it's not cool, or because you didn't have time, or like it's just the way
Yeah.
life is sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, it's really interesting having to connect back to your inner child, and like just even going back to like I used to love arts and crafts growing up. Like loved arts and crafts. Loved it. And so I'm not necessarily going back to like like doing GIMP bracelets. Do you remember GIMP bracelets? The plastic. Oh my gosh. So
Okay, I've seen
there's
them
the
then, yeah.
plastic where you used to make like these different kind of bracelets with it, or like the thread bracelets. And like I used to do that all the time as a kid. But it's like, okay, like getting back into art, getting back into painting, getting back into the different kind of ways that I can like use my creativity and expression in that way, you know? And yeah, and it's like going back to even like making exercise fun. That's what one of my intuitive friends told me. She's like, if it's not fun, you're not going to do it.
Mhm.
You're not going to stick to it. She's like, everything has to be fun for you. And I'm like, well, that's true, because that's what it was like as a kid. Everything was fun for me as a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like why one of the things, like some of my buddies used to lift weights and stuff, and I would try to go. It was never fun for me. And then like the whole attitude of people that lift weights, I don't identify with. And I'm not like diminishing it. It's just not for me. Just like swimming and making like copper bracelets and like painting and all this stuff that I'm into isn't for most people.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
I get it. Like it's cool. It is what it is.
Yeah. It's, you know, different strokes for different folks.
I think it's
Yeah.
cool too, like with the Sun card. I don't remember if it was before we started recording or after we started recording, but you said that like you're in like this really light time right now where like you kind of want I don't want to put it out there for you, but like you kind of need something so you can have like a little bit more of a shakeup or a shift.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting how that comes up. And like if you look at the ribbon, it's red. Red's like intensity in tarot stuff.
Mhm.
So it's like the
Mhm.
intensity of the light. And like even so some of the light beams are like straight, some are a little bit crooked and bendy. And it's like even the little bends and twists have been like illuminating for you and causing
Yeah.
more flowers to grow. That's one of the unifying threads of your past and present too, is the flowers.
Yeah. Maybe I need more flowers in my apartment.
Yeah, that might help. I like those are always good to have, really.
Always. Always.
You ready for your future card now?
Oh, of course.
This is one of my
Cups again. Cups
Yeah, right. I didn't even notice that. Two
all
major
emotional.
arcana and two cups.
Yeah. All right. So, wow, that's crazy.
Have you ever seen the one meme for this where it says just take the fucking cup, dude? It's so awesome.
That's all I'm gonna be thinking now.
I should
Okay,
have waited until after. Sorry.
so Four of Cups. Is he sitting there with his hands like in a meditation, or is it crossed like he's not accepting it?
He's kind of not accepting. He doesn't want anything to do with the divine cup coming at him.
Hmm.
He's like,
So
man.
weird. And sitting under a tree too, which I'm sure has some symbolism to it.
One of my friends told me this is kind of like the Buddha card in lots of ways.
Oh, really? Like how?
Because like Buddha meditated under that one tree, but I also think Buddha would have taken the cup. Like that's the whole concept of why he's Buddha. He wouldn't be like, I don't want that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting.
I
I
only
had
drink out of crystal cups. Sorry, go ahead.
I had a dream the other night where um I was it was the weirdest dream. I was dating someone. Okay, so my boyfriend's 4.5 years younger than me. But in my dream, I was dating someone who wasn't him, who was like much, much younger than me, like probably 10 years younger, it felt like at least. and I kept refusing their love. I
Mm.
kept on, like, I was dating them, but I would always be like, keep them at an arm's distance. And I would always be like, no, 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 no. Like, you can't really know what's going on in my world because you don't know what's actually going on. But I'm still going to date you because, like, you're cute and you're fun. But you're not going to, like, stay in here. And I would hide from them too. Like, I would just not accept them and just kind of like, but they would, like, adore me. Like, this person was adoring of me, and I just refused to accept that that's how it was going to be. And then by the end of the dream, we were skipping off hand in hand because I was like, okay, I can allow you into my world now. So
Mm.
it feels like that is kind of very reflective of my dream almost.
Yeah, I could take it like not accepting emotions really, and like not embracing something that's coming up to you somewhat. Maybe it's even relative to not embracing the fact that you're just like kind of like a mental ninja, and you're just kind of like difficult things have come up for you, but you're just kind of like, yeah, like you're like Neo in the Matrix when all those Mr. Smiths like surround him and he throws them all off.
Difficult situation. That's from yesterday. That's another worldly thing to deal with.
I know Kung Fu.
Yeah. Which is funny. I'm gonna start karate up soon. So
See, I knew.
you have the mind Jedi tricks going on, don't you?
Don't tell me that. I might start to believe it.
You're gonna study Star Wars now right after.
Right. How do I do that? I'm trying to use the Force. I'll end up like getting a nosebleed from concentrating too hard or something. Yeah, that was an interesting reading. Yeah, I don't really know how to take that card so much because like I do feel like it is kind of just like that meditative thing. I guess the other way could be maybe you're just not aware of some of the other gifts that you have in the future. Like you might not be aware of some of your potential in the future.
Sure.
Like as you move forward, you're going to uncover more stuff, like, but you might just kind of not be aware of it. I don't think that it means you'll never be aware of it. It's just kind of one of those things where like you'll sit there with it and be like,
it's not for me. I'm not good at it, or I don't want to accept it because of whatever it may be, versus being open and receptive to it.
yeah. So it is it's like kind of just like the just be card instead of just being ungrateful. I'm like insulting future you right now. Quit being so ungrateful, future Sam.
Future Sam was going to kick past Ross's ass.
Oh, no.
No.
Oh, man. I'm going to give you a quintessence card now and see how it kind of dials stuff in. Because from what I get, it's like unifying that duality. And maybe that's kind of what it is, too.
Yeah.
If you look at it as a whole with the Chariot on top there, because both of these cards are kind of dualistic in one way, like with the exception of the Sun, because the one, the guy's not taking the gift and he's by himself, and the other one, they're sharing the gift and he's like with another person.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I like to like make a picture with them like that.
Now you got my brain kind of going about it. Just gonna sit here quietly as I try to ponder on that.
Yeah, go for it. I'm gonna look up your I'll look up your quintessence.
Cool. Yeah. Like what it's coming up for me is like I'm like with the two major arcana cards, it's like, all right, like this is exactly, it's the path that you're supposed to go on. It's the going into the light, so to speak. And like I was saying before we started recording about how, I need to shake things up a little bit and go into the underworld a little bit and kind of get that woken up inside of me a little bit more, which essentially helps you go back into the light, and the acceptance of that path. And the only thing I can think about in terms of the cups would be like, in a way, maybe even like the friendships that I've been making, or, you know, like where it could be in terms of me not accepting maybe even other people's help moving forward.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to like not accepting people's help. It's something that our culture kind of um, looks down upon, accepting people's help, although it's like one of the most strongest positions to be in, to like gratefully accept someone's help in like a good place, which I think that you would do in lots of ways.
It's just so interesting because like I'm like, I don't know how this would be, because I've been in such a receptive place where I'm like, no, please, people help me. Like, like I can't do this by myself. Like I can't go through life by myself. So yes, please help me. But I'm curious if it has to do with the fact of like me moving forward with, you know, like going back to school, and if there would be any kind of thing where I'll just be ignoring people's help when I'm going through the motions of, you know, becoming a therapist and counselor, you know, and kind of moving through those phases there, because I've been so open and receptive to other people's help and to the gifts and to the community. Maybe that's it.
Could be something else that popped up for me about like the not accepting help trend is like maybe you kind of lose your connection to your higher power, like your source or something, like, and you don't have that contact with it, and it's like, I want to help you, you just got to kind of acknowledge me, and you're like, meh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna sit under a tree and look at these 3 empty cups that I have and not take the one that I actually need.
Yeah.
Quit being ungrateful, future citizen. Sorry.
The universe, source wants to help you. Stop being such an ungrateful biatch.
I'm glad you said it and not me. No.
But that's kind of true though, because I've been sort of feeling that. And I mean, it's so funny how, I don't know if you ever feel this way, but it's like if you ever kind of lose your, like if you don't meditate for, let's say, even a week, you're like, oh my God, it's been a month since I last meditated and I'm not connected. And it's literally been maybe like 5 days since I've literally last sat and been quiet with myself, because we had a long weekend here this past weekend. And so we went up to a cottage, and it was just like people and loud and music and you know, coming back right into the work week, and I haven't really had any time for myself. And so it's been like 5 or 6 days, oh, maybe a week at this point, that I've actually sat by myself and like meditated and been quiet and had like those peaceful, quiet moments. And it feels like it's been forever. It feels like it's been like a month. And so I can see that happening too, like in that regard too, where it's like I get so busy with the things that I'm involved in and all the work that I do. And, you know, and then with school and with that if I was to lose my connection, it would be like, hey, we're here.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of screaming at you, want you to pay attention. So I could see something like that happening.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to like not meditating for a bit and like feeling like you haven't done it for forever. But like for me now, with where I'm at, if I don't meditate for like a day or two, my mind is like completely a freaking mess. Like it's something that like I physically have to do to like cope with all the different things that all the other unhealthy coping mechanisms I've built up. And then like with having a diagnosis, although I they don't think I'm bipolar anymore. Like they don't think I ever was. I think it was a misdiagnosis. I still have borderline personality disorder and stuff like that, which is very difficult. So it's like I have to like stay present and be the observer. Otherwise, I'll flip my shit. Like, to put it bluntly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I can. I worked with someone who had borderline personality disorder and refused to admit it. Mm-hmm. She refused to admit that was her diagnosis. So I can understand that, when it's hard to function in the world if you don't even have like a solid grounding of where to even start from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's one of the things about like mental health too, is that people have a hard time accepting it, because if they share that with people, then there's such a stigma about any one of those conditions, especially like bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder, or
Mm-hmm.
having had mania or psychosis myself. It's like that shit makes people uncomfortable because of the common misconception about what it's actually like.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. Um,
Well, and that's why you got to educate. Like one of my cousins was depressed for the longest time, and no one knew why. Like went to therapists, everything just couldn't. Like no one was able to give him a proper diagnosis or even proper medication. Like nothing worked for him at all, and he got diagnosed with bipolar probably like a year and a half ago. And all of a sudden, you could just see him kind of go like, to that, and he's like educating people now about it, because he's like, it resonates with him and made him feel better knowing that there was a proper diagnosis, he's on the proper medication for it. And it's the education aspect that can allow people to stop being uncomfortable with it, right? Like becoming an ally so that it doesn't become uncomfortable. And
no, absolutely. That's so crucial. It's like the thing, like having treated myself for bipolar, like with mindfulness, all that kind of stuff that like was
mm,
suggested to me. It's something that I still do, where it's like maybe I am, maybe I'm not. It doesn't really matter to me anymore.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
identify with it personally, because it's one of those labels, and it's like I'll say that I was diagnosed, but I don't really know. It doesn't matter.
yeah,
But I think that it is good to have people educating people about it, because the common conception of it is so skewed, and most people think that bipolar, they think that the symptoms of it are like borderline personality disorder, where it like
mm,
fluctuates in a day, and it's like
yeah,
bipolar is over a month, or like cyclical like that. And
yeah.
I'll never forget this. There was some lady, and her car alarm was going off, and she was like, "Oh, my car is bipolar." I got so mad, and I wanted to be like, "I'll show you bipolar," but then but I was like, that probably isn't gonna help. Like,
No, but in that moment, that's all you wanted to do is like, oh, that makes me so mad when people make comments like that, because I'm just like, you really don't know what you're talking about, do you?
yeah, it's like when people call people maniacs too. I'm like, no, that's not a maniac. Like I saw somebody call Trump and Kim Jong Un a maniac, and I'm just like, they give maniacs a bad name.
Yeah.
Don't insult maniacs like that. Like,
Yeah. Don't put them in the same category as Trump.
right?
Who wants that? Narcissism, sure.
Yeah, it's
Megalomaniac, sure.
yeah, mania has like some good traits to it, which I don't think he expresses.
No one knows about Mania's good traits.
Right. So for your quintessence card, I want to
Okay.
check my math. 19 plus 7 is 26, and then 6 plus 4 is 10, so it should be 36, right?
Yes.
Okay, this is kind of funny with kind of saying what you were wanting to experience possibly.
Oh, really?
Can you see what it says?
Darkening of the light.
Can
That's
you read those little
funny.
words at the bottom when you move it?
Okay. Maintain a low profile. Look inward first. Caution and moderation. Difficulties. Self protection. Subdue your brilliance. Fascinating.
It's weird how that comes up like that, right?
So fascinating. Yeah.
There's a 4-page description for that, which I'll send you.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm almost done with all those Dow descriptions. I had to type out 64 of them from the book.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, I'm so looking forward to being done with it.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
grateful that like I took the time to do it, because it's really nice to offer that with like my tarot reading service, or like
Sure.
when I do stuff like this, but
It's
it's
a
a
lot of
lot of
work.
work. Yeah.
I don't think I'd be able to do that. I think I'd get through maybe like the first 10 and be like, okay, I'm done. I'll
I
pay.
made a I made like a conscious effort to do it incrementally and just try to do one a day.
Right.
But like doing such a big project over such a time, with my concept of urgency and immediacy with everything, and lacking of
Mm,
patience, makes it incredibly stressful. But one of the things I it's one of those things like I asked for was to learn patience this year. So it goes back into that concept of be careful what you ask for.
Sure. How is that lesson in patience going for you?
I'm getting a little impatient with it. No.
But
to be honest, no, it's good. It's like even with the whole business thing, it's like learning to be patient and push it off until like springtime it feels so much better to give me that space than be under the pressure of I need to do this now. If I don't do this now, I'll never accomplish it.
Yeah.
It's really, excuse me, unprogramming a lot of conditioning that has come to my life from whatever source, but reinforced throughout my life incredibly by myself.
Right.
So it's just healing.
Yeah, absolutely.
The uncomfortableness of it is from the part that needs healed. So.
Well, if it was the comfortable part that need to be healed, then you wouldn't need to be healed now, would you?
Yeah, that's a very valid point. I'm going to give you a Rumi Oracle card and then
okay,
let you get back to your day. Just tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Okay. You want the first card or you want me to take a couple off?
The first one.
Okay.
Never lost. It is certain that an atom of goodness on the path of faith is never lost. That's sweet.
And it's another flower.
Another flower. Okay, I think that's a sign. I need to go buy myself some flowers today.
Yeah, you got 3 flowers. Or 3 different types of flowers, rather.
Yeah.
I'll look up the description for that too. Although all the Rumi cards are pretty straightforward, but
yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah, I like that deck a lot. It's kind of different than what I thought it would be, but that's life.
Well, you were attracted to it and it was calling you for some reason.
Yeah, it's one of those things where that was a lesson in acceptance that I didn't get what I thought it should be. I got what it was and I actually like it as it is. But
yeah.
in my mind, it's like one of the things I'm really struggling with too is like non-acceptance or like this concept of greed where I want things to be more than, like not in the traditional greed sense of wanting more, but more than. And it's, I'm getting a lot of lessons in that lately. But it's cool. It's what I need.
Yeah. Yeah. Where I'm getting the lessons of like simplicity. I went to, there's a goddess, Doreen Virtue does a goddess deck. And it's like, everyone has this deck. It's the most basic deck for goddess oracle cards out there. And I was like, I don't want this deck. Everyone's got it. So I went to the shop and I was looking at different cards. I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? And the next thing I know, I've got this deck of cards in my hand at the cashier's desk. And I'm like, oh, so I guess I'm buying this. And for me, it was like, and with that and with everything else, it's like the lesson of like, just because it's simple and just because it's basic doesn't diffuse the essence of the cards, or, you know, like the, what's the word I'm looking for? The quality or the messages that can come through, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things again, where it's like, creating your own barrier from something that could help you really. And there's more of a lesson in learning to appreciate the one that you might not like as much. Granted, if it's something you really dislike, it's like, don't go for that. But if it's, there's a lesson in that too, I feel like.
Absolutely.
It's funny when you said it was basic, it made me think it was like the pumpkin spice of oracle cards.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. Like everyone, like the yoga studio that I teach at has those cards. The co-working space that I'm a part of has those cards. About 5 of my friends have those cards. And like, whenever I talk about, I have these cards, everyone's like, oh, I have them. I'm like, oh boy, I thought I was getting away from being basic.
You're like out and like 5 people hear you say that and come up and like pop out of the woodwork. I have those too.
And you're like, okay, all right. Yeah. I might as well just have my pumpkin spice latte in hand as well.
Mm-hmm. There's kind of something nice though about having something that other people have too. I used to be on like that kind of like elitist concept. I'm cool because I have this and you don't have it. And it's like, That's actually a way unhealthier space to be in, I feel like, than being like.
Sometimes it is. Well, that's the original hipster. You know that, right? Like the term hipster was for people who liked underground things, who didn't like mainstream stuff, or especially music. And like as soon as something became mainstream, they stopped liking it. And that was me.
That was me
Like
too.
for so much, especially for music. As soon as it became mainstream, I was like, I don't like this band. They're not my favorite. And then I kind of slowly had to be like, no, they're still good.
I fall into that sometimes to still
Yeah.
now. I also kind of feel though like hipster has become hipster.
Well, hipster is, yeah, exactly. Like hipster's taken on a totally new name and a totally new trend and genre of style now.
Mm.
But yeah,
That's
it's,
originally like a 40s or 50s or earlier term, right? Because I've seen it in Kerouac's writing.
oh, I don't know. I'm not too familiar with Kerouac, so
Really? I think you'd
yeah,
like his stuff.
probably. I'm trying not to. My friend is in love with Kerouac, so I'm sure she'll be able to lend me one of her books when I have some time
Yeah,
and not
absolutely.
reading school books.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a read. There's a lot of good ones that I've read.
Okay, cool.
How did you feel your reading was overall? Do you feel like it was good with where you're at?
Yeah, it was pretty on point. It was
Awesome.
pretty on point. Yeah, because it does feel like, oh, I just noticed that like literally right behind you, there's a little flower. There's like a sunflower there. Yeah.
I got my tapestry back up. Yeah, there is another flower there. And there's on a
Yeah.
big tree, like the tree of life.
Yeah. Oh, fascinating. No, I found it to be very appropriate for where I am today. Like nothing, no surprises came about because it's pretty much where I am in my life, where I'm looking to uncover and discover a little bit more of myself and kind of go a little bit deeper and a little bit darker and
Mm.
um, and kind of just work through my darkness a little bit more, I'm finding. um and the cups part, that I feel like I'm going to be thinking about that a little bit more in terms of like, or not thinking so much as just like allowing myself to just kind of flow with it and kind of be like the Tao and just accept it for what it is and what it isn't, and let it be within and without. And yeah.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's more like an affirmative reading than like a revealing new stuff kind of reading.
Yeah,
That's
like
good though.
if there would have been like, there's probably like one or two questions that I would have been like, what is going to happen with this here, in regards to some other aspects. But no, this one was just more of an affirmative kind of like, cool, yeah. It's right on the point.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for being here, Sam. And if
Oh,
you
thank
want,
you.
I can throw your links in the description, or you can like plug your links now, and people can check out your stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you, I'm mostly on Instagram, at underscore Sambellina, Sambellina. You can find me on Facebook if you want, Sam Warren. Although my yoga page is Samantha Warren Yoga and Mindfulness. You can check out my website if you want, www.samanthawarren.biz, B-I-Z. And I think that's about it. Like, I don't really do Twitter too much, or I'm too old for Snapchat apparently. So, um,
I feel that way too.
my nephews tell me that. They're like, you're too old for Snapchat. You do Facebook. You can't do Snapchat.
Right? You're like, you remember what MySpace is. You're not allowed to use Snapchat.
Yeah, pretty much. But they're like, MySpace? What's that? Like, come on, get with the times.
Yeah, most people probably don't even know what MySpace is.
No. I mean, they probably
Thankfully.
know of it because like they know some people who were on MySpace, like some musicians who were on MySpace before, so they've heard about it, but they don't know
Mm.
what it is.
Mm.
So, but yeah.
All right, yeah. Well, I'll put those links up in the description. If you could send them over to me, or I can try to pull them up from your
Yeah,
past interview.
yeah, I can send them over to you. No problem.
Awesome, thanks, Sam. I hope you have a
Yeah,
good day, and hope to have you on again sometime. And
yeah, for sure.
do you want to close us out with something?
Um, just have a wonderful day, everyone. Call Ross for a reading.
Thanks for the plug for me. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Don't believe. Don't follow. Do not consume. Do not watch. Largely what I'm talking about here is reclaiming experience. This is what's been taken from us. It's a self-advancing, self-expanding, self-defining process, and it takes no prisoners.
The real world isn't a spiritual world, it isn't a material world, it isn't an empty world, it isn't a solid world. It's simply